Hi everyone, Nathaniel Pawlowski here. I just want to clarify some things about the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit. My last video was difficult to do with thousands of students walking by and all the commotion. It was hard to formulate thoughts and articulate sentences, so I just want to clarify some things and share some of my thoughts about the event. So first of all, it was one of the most beautiful events I've ever experienced in my life. It was kind of like the feeling of when the trucker convoy was underway in Canada. It was that feeling of unity, that feeling of togetherness, and the power of the people. It was such an incredible experience to see so many young people gathered in one place with similar views, and at the center of it all was faith, was God, was Jesus Christ. So it was incredible to experience that. It is extremely political. It's a very political event. It's a very political organization. But here's something interesting and something that was fascinating to me and a bit of a culture shock, really. Something I'm not used to coming from Canada. I probably heard around 5 congressmen speak, probably around 10 senators speak, governors speak, 2 or 3 governors. The Trump administration speak, Trump himself. And you know what at the center of almost every single one of their speeches was? It was God. It was biblical principles. It was fascinating to hear that. For example, Ron DeSantis at the end of his speech says we have to put on the full armor of God, and first put on the belt of truth. It was very, very interesting to hear him say that, and all these other politicians talk about their faith. For example, Governor Kevin Stitt says the most important thing is his relationship with Jesus Christ. I mean, imagine a leader of a province saying that. That's just mind-blowing to me. I can't even wrap my head around that, because we don't have that. Not one politician is willing to stand up for freedom, let alone their faith, to publicly proclaim it. And I have a question for you. Why do you think Oklahoma, Governor Kevin Stitt is the governor of Oklahoma, why do you think Oklahoma is so prosperous? Why do you think Florida is so prosperous? Maybe it's because they have godly leaders and godly people who elect those godly leaders. So it was incredible to hear that. Almost every single senator, almost every single congressman or congresswoman said that they believe in God and that we need to bring God into everything we do, especially in politics. It was incredible to hear that. I've never seen anything like that before, and it was a huge culture shock to me. But it was just beautiful, and that's the difference between Canadian politics and American politics. Of course, there's dirt in everything, and I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect. In fact, most of the Republicans that I heard speak said, do not vote for establishment Republicans because they are the same as the Democrats. And that's what we have in Canada. The Conservatives are exactly like the Liberals. In fact, some of them are more liberal than the Liberals. So, but it was just really interesting to hear their take on faith. I mean, obviously, all of them were for freedom. All of them were against the ridiculous mandates. All of them were mocking. Almost all of them were mocking masks, the vaccines, and all of this craziness. Every single one of them, I can name all of them that said that sexual indoctrination is evil and that it has no place in the school system. Critical race theory is in itself racist. So they all stand for these good principles, and it was really cool to hear that. And I was mind blown. I had to sit down for a second and just take it all in. And I want that for Canada. I want that for Canada because I know that when you bring God in, prosperity comes, freedom follows. At the center of the Constitution of both Canada and America is God. Whereas Canada acknowledges the supremacy of God and the rule of law, and in America, of course, most of the founding fathers and the Constitution itself was written as a biblical Judeo-Christian document. So we need to bring that back, but it was really amazing to hear all these prominent politicians publicly speak this. It was incredible. Never experienced anything like that in my life. In the Trump administration, the same. Trump himself talked about God. Donald Trump Jr. talked about God, and Kayleigh McEnany told us her testimony, an incredible testimony. She talked about how she was born in a Christian family, but she was Christian here, not here. And one day she was working for Fox in New York, and then she challenged God and had her own miracle encounter with God, and she got saved. And then she told us about how Trump called her and asked her to be the press secretary, and her first day was kind of a nightmare. She was in tears, she was stressed out, and then she did a prayer, and she had this supernatural peace after that, and delivered an amazing delivery in her press secretary role on her first day. So at the center of these American politics, we can see the difference in how they approach religion. In Canada, church and state have been completely cut out, and that there's no place for a politician to bring up God. I mean, that in itself is a communist principle that comes from communist principles, where the state replaces God and God has no place in the state. So seeing this, and that's why America is more prosperous than that. It all boils down to that. They still have godly people in power, and they still have these hot spots of Christianity, of Judeo-Christian values. The way they say it is, most of the metropolitan areas are extremely liberal. They're blue, but all the surrounding areas are red. So in fact, the majority of the people are conservative, and they're voting for godly men, godly women, and that is why their nation is still relatively free, and they're not in the mess that Canada is. I met Donald Trump Jr., and he told me, I went up to him and I said, I introduced myself. I said, I'm the son of that pastor up in Canada, Pastor Artur Pawlowski, who was arrested, and he's the guy who kicked out the officers from his church on Easter when they tried to come to shut down church. And he said, "Oh, wow." And I said, I just want to thank you for taking a stand for freedom. And he says, we should be thanking your dad, because if everybody took a stand for freedom like him, we wouldn't be in the mess we are. He didn't use the word mess, but I'm not going to repeat the word he used. But that's what he said to me. And I got a picture with him. And almost everyone I met knew the story and was very sympathetic and was very grateful for the stand that he took. So it had a global impact, and the Americans value somebody who's willing to stand for freedom, because that's at the center of their beliefs. I want to bring this movement, what I've seen here, to Canada, because we need to take an example from America, and we need to start taking action. We need to start getting involved in politics. We need to get the young people involved. Education is just so important. Vladimir Lenin said, "I will plant a seed so deep in the minds of the children that it'll be impossible to take it out." I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially the quote that he said. And that's so true. I've gone to university, went through the high school system, the university system. They are indoctrinating the children, and we need to start getting involved in the education if we want to change our nation. So I absolutely want to bring this movement, this beautiful, conservative, grassroots godly movement to Canada and start something similar. So I'm looking forward to what that will bring.